Slowly look around the place you call shelter, and you begin to understand something important. This cave is not really a home, not in the way you would imagine a home today. There are no wooden doors keeping the world outside away, no smooth floors, no rooms designed for comfort. This place is simply a small piece of protection carved into the earth, a temporary escape from the endless cold surrounding you. The cave does not belong to you. It belongs to the mountain, the stone, and the ancient world that existed long before you arrived. For early humans, caves were often misunderstood. They were not always the cozy underground houses people imagine. Many caves were dark, damp, uneven, and difficult places to live. Some areas were too wet, some were too dangerous, and some had poor airflow. A cave could protect you from wind and snow, but it could also bring its own problems. You feel the cold stone beneath you. Even with layers of grass and animal hides, the ground still steals warmth from your body. The walls around you are strong, but they hold the memory of the freezing earth. The air smells like smoke, ash, and the natural scent of the materials used for survival. You are learning that staying warm is not about finding one perfect place. It is about making an imperfect place work. The people around you understand this. They choose where to rest carefully. They avoid areas where water gathers. They look for spots where the wind cannot easily enter. They watch the shape of the cave and notice small details that might seem meaningless to someone from the future. A tiny change in the cave could change everything. A narrow opening might create a dangerous cold draft. A dry corner might become the safest sleeping area. A flat section of ground might become the place where everyone gathers around the fire. The cave becomes a puzzle, and every night, ancient humans solve it. You move closer to the fire and feel the difference immediately. A few steps away, the cold returns. Near the flames, your fingers slowly regain feeling. This simple discovery became one of the greatest advantages humans ever found. Fire gave people a reason to gather. Before fire, darkness belonged completely to the night. The cold came without resistance. But now, inside this rough cave, there is a small glowing center of life. The fire does not make the cave comfortable. It makes the cave possible. The smoke rises toward the darker parts of the ceiling, sometimes finding its way out through cracks above. The people have learned that placing the fire in the wrong spot can make the air unbearable. They need warmth, but they also need to breathe. Survival is always a balance. The older members of the group know these things because they have watched countless nights pass. They have seen storms arrive suddenly. They have felt the temperature drop after sunset. They have learned that preparation matters more than strength. A powerful person who ignores the cold may struggle. A careful person who understands the environment may survive. You notice the sleeping area nearby. It is not a bed, but it is something carefully created. Dry plants cover the hard ground. Animal skins are placed above them. Each layer has a purpose. The goal is to create distance between your body and the freezing earth. The ancient world did not provide comfort freely. Everything had to be collected, carried, and prepared. The hides around you came from animals that once lived across this frozen landscape. The grass and leaves were gathered when they were dry. The wood for the fire was collected before the snow became too deep. The warmth you feel now is the result of hours of work. You begin to realize that ancient nights were not only about surviving the darkness. They were about remembering every lesson from the previous night. Which wood burned longer? Which part of the cave stayed dry? Which sleeping position kept the most heat? Which materials protected the body best? These questions were not written in books. They were passed through actions, stories, and generations of experience. Outside, the wind becomes stronger. You hear it moving around the entrance of the cave. Snow brushes against the rocks. The world beyond your small fire feels enormous and endless. But inside, the group remains calm. Someone adjusts the animal skins near the entrance. Someone checks the fire. Someone moves closer to another person for warmth. This is one of the oldest human habits, staying together. The cold made people depend on each other. A single person alone faced a much harder night, but a group could share warmth, protect the fire, watch for danger, and help the weakest survive. The cave may not be a home. The fire may not be a luxury. The blankets may not be soft. But together, they create something powerful. A chance to see another sunrise. As your eyes slowly become heavy, you understand the truth about these ancient shelters. They were not perfect places hidden from nature. They were places where humans learned how to live with nature. The cave was cold. The night was dangerous. Winter was unforgiving. Yet somehow, surrounded by stone, fire, and the people beside you, you find a small moment of peace. The same kind of peace humans have searched for every night throughout history. Warmth, safety, and a quiet place to rest. You open your eyes. The absolute darkness of the night has broken. A faint gray light bleeds through the jagged entrance of the cave, painting the rough stone walls in pale shadows. The fire is no longer a roaring center of life. It has reduced to a low, glowing pulse of red embers hidden beneath a thick blanket of gray ash. The intense heat from hours ago is gone, replaced by a creeping chill that reminds you the mountain is still awake and still unforgiving. The peace of the night was only a pause. Around you, the group begins to stir. There are no alarms. No clocks, only the slow, stiff shifting of bodies reacting to the dropping temperature and the changing light. Someone coughs softly. Another stretches, their joints popping in the quiet, dusty air. You push yourself up from the animal hides. Your muscles ache. The ground, despite the carefully arranged layers of dry grass, has left you stiff. But you are alive. That is the only metric that matters. An elder moves toward the center of the cave, their breath visible in the freezing air. With a charred piece of wood, they gently stir the ashes. A tiny spark jumps. A fragile reminder that the fire is not dead, only sleeping. They blow softly, their breath feeding the embers until a small, tentative flame catches on a twisted bundle of dry moss. Light and a faint trace of heat return to the space between you. But the focus of the group has already shifted. The night was about staying inside. The day is about going out. Hunger begins to gnaw at your stomach. You notice the water collected in a hollowed stone nearby now has a thin, fragile layer of ice across its surface. The supplies gathered yesterday will not last forever. The ancient world does not offer the luxury of resting for long. Every sunrise brings a reset. The wood must be replenished. Food must be tracked and gathered. The environment must be surveyed for new threats. You watch as the group silently prepares for the day. It is a practice routine. Stone blades are checked and secured to wooden handles with tight, dried sinew. Thick furs are pulled tighter around shoulders and fastened securely against the biting wind that waits outside. Words are few. Energy is conserved for the labor ahead. The cave, which felt like an entire universe just hours ago, now feels like what it truly is, a temporary shelter. It is time to face the endless expanse outside. You step toward the entrance, leaving the faint, smoky warmth of the rekindled fire behind. As you cross the threshold, the wind hits your face immediately. It is sharp, biting, and carries the crisp scent of pine and distant snow. The glare of the morning sun against the frosted earth forces you to squint. You look back one last time at the dark hollow carved into the earth. It will wait for you. If you are careful enough and strong enough to return, crunches beneath your wrapped feet. It is a sharp, dry sound that seems far too loud in the massive silence of the valley. The world outside the cave is blindingly white. It stretches out in every direction, a frozen ocean of rolling hills, dark, jagged rocks, and skeletal trees stripped bare by the winter. The sheer size of it makes you feel incredibly small. Out here, there are no walls to hold the heat. There is only the sky, pale and indifferent, and the wind that pushes against you like a physical weight. The group moves in a single line. No one speaks. Sound is a luxury that can frighten away a meal or attract a predator. Instead, communication happens through gestures. A raised hand, a slight tilt of the head, a pointed finger. You fall into rhythm behind the person in front of you, carefully placing your feet in the tracks they leave behind. It saves energy. Wading through unbroken snow would exhaust you in minutes, and out here, energy is your most precious resource. The elders at the front of the line do not wander aimlessly. They are reading the landscape. To a modern eye, the white expanse might look empty. But to the people of this time, the snow is a canvas of information. They look for bent branches. They watch the behavior of the few birds circling above. They study the shape of the frost on the bark of the trees. Suddenly, the leader stops. The entire line freezes instantly. You hold your breath, your heart beating a little faster against your ribs. The leader crouches low, sweeping away a thin layer of fresh powder with a gloved hand. There it is, a set of deep, heavy indentations in the earth, pressed firmly into the frozen mud beneath the snow. The edges of the tracks are still sharp. They haven't been softened by the wind yet. The animal passed through here recently. The group exchanges a series of quick, silent looks. Shoulders shift, grips tighten on wooden spears and stone-tipped tools. The atmosphere changes from a steady, enduring march into something sharp and focused. The hunt has begun. You begin to move again, but slower this time. The posture of the group changes, pressing closer to the ground, using the shadows of the rocks and the thick trunks of the dead trees to break up your outline. You realize that survival outside the cave is entirely different from survival inside it. Inside, you are trying to hold nature back. Outside, you must become part of it. You must move like the wind, strike like the frost, and vanish like the shadows. If the animal hears you, it will run, and the night will be spent with empty stomachs. If you lose the trail, the cold will eventually force you back to the shelter, with nothing to show for the lost warmth. The forest grows thicker ahead. The tracks lead directly into the dark tangle of ancient pines. You tighten your grip on your weapon. The cold in your fingers is forgotten, replaced entirely by the adrenaline of the chase. You step into the shadow of the trees, ready to see what the ancient world has decided to offer today. The transition into the forest feels like crossing into another world. The blinding white glare of the open plains is instantly replaced by a deep, heavy twilight. Massive trunks of ancient pines rise around you like giant pillars, holding up a dense canopy of dark needles and packed snow. Down here, the cutting wind cannot reach you, but the air is incredibly still. It feels as though the forest itself is holding its breath. Every step now requires immense concentration. A single snapped twig beneath your foot would echo like a crack of thunder in this suffocating silence. The group moves with a fluidity that speaks of years of shared survival. They do not look at their feet. They feel the ground through their thin hide footwear, rolling their weight carefully to avoid making a sound. The leader pauses. He points downward. The snow here is shallower, protected by the thick canopy above, but the dark earth is torn. A patch of bark has been scraped raw from the trunk of a nearby pine, exposing the pale, weeping wood beneath. A few steps further, a fresh cluster of droppings steams faintly in the freezing air. The animal is very close. You smell it before you see it. A sharp, musky scent that cuts through the clean smell of pine and frost. Your senses, sharpened by the gnawing hunger in your stomach, lock onto the odor. Through a break in the heavy branches ahead, a shadow shifts. It is a massive elk, its dark coat thick and shaggy against the winter. Its antlers are a towering crown of jagged bone. It stands near the edge of a small, snow-dusted clearing, scraping at the frozen earth with a heavy hoof, desperately searching for buried lichen. It is beautiful. It is powerful, and it is your only chance to survive the coming days. The group separates without a single command. The hunters fan out, moving like ghosts through the shadows. They are creating a loose, invisible circle around the clearing. You take your position behind the thick trunk of a fallen tree, your muscles coiled tight. The rough wood of your spear shaft bites into your palms, but you do not feel the cold anymore. You only feel the rapid, heavy pulse of your own heart. The elk stops scraping. Its ears flick back. Its head snaps up, nostrils flaring wildly. It has sensed something. A microscopic shift in the air, a shadow out of place, or perhaps the faint, lingering smell of wood smoke still clinging to your furs. The ancient game of predator and prey balances on a knife's edge. The animal's muscles bunch, tension rippling across its heavy shoulders as it prepares to explode into a dead sprint. If it runs, it will easily outpace you in the deep snow. If it fights, its antlers and hooves are deadly weapons capable of crushing a human ribcage in a single strike. The leader steps out from the brush, directly in front of the beast. He does not yell. He does not charge. He simply stands tall, raising his heavy wooden spear, forcing the elk's attention squarely onto him. The animal hesitates for a fraction of a second, calculating its escape route, turning its massive body away from the threat. But the circle is already closed. From the shadows on the elk's flank, the other hunters emerge simultaneously. The stillness of the forest shatters. A heavy spear slices through the freezing air. The true test of the day strikes with a dull, heavy thud, catching the elk high on his shoulder. The animal releases a sound that is part scream, part roar, a guttural, desperate noise that vibrates in your chest. Chaos erupts, but it is a controlled, practiced chaos. The elk lunges forward, crashing through the brittle underbrush. Its massive antlers swing violently, shattering dead branches like glass. It kicks out with brutal force, its hooves carving deep trenches into the snow. One of the hunters steps too late. The elk's shoulder clips him, sending him spinning backward into a snowdrift. But the circle does not break. Another hunter steps into the animal's blind spot, driving a stone-tipped thrust into its ribs. The elk stumbles, its breathing turning ragged and wet. Steam pours from its mouth in thick, frantic clouds. It fights with the furious, undeniable will to live that belongs to every wild thing. You move in. Your instincts take over. You do not think about the cold, or the danger, or the sheer size of the beast. You see the opening. You step forward, planting your foot firmly on a patch of exposed root, and thrust your weapon with everything you have. The strike lands true. The elk's legs buckle. The massive weight of the animal finally betrays it, and it collapses heavily into the powder. A long, shuddering breath escapes its lungs, melting the frost beneath its muzzle. Then, it is still. The violent explosion of energy vanishes as quickly as it began. The forest returns to its absolute silence, save for the heavy, labored breathing of the hunters. You stand there, your hands trembling slightly, the adrenaline slowly receding to leave behind a hollow, aching exhaustion. There is no cheering. There is no triumph. In the modern world, a victory is celebrated. Here, a victory is simply a stay of execution. Taking a life is a heavy, solemn act. The hunters gather around the fallen creature. The leader kneels in the snow, placing a bare hand on the elk's thick coat. It is a silent acknowledgement of the animal's strength, and a gesture of profound gratitude. The beast's death means the group's life. The real work begins. There is no time to rest. The smell of fresh blood is already drifting through the trees, a siren song for wolves, cave lions, and every other hungry predator navigating this frozen valley. The cold, too, is a ticking clock. If the animal is not processed quickly, the carcass will freeze solid, becoming impossible to cut with stone tools. Knives of chipped flint and dark obsidian are drawn. The group moves with intense efficiency. Every part of the elk is a treasure. The hide will become new blankets, offering a desperately needed barrier against the freezing cave floor. The heavy bones will be cracked for their rich marrow, and later shaped into needles, awls, and new weapons. The sinew will be carefully extracted, dried, and used for binding. The meat will feed the group for days, providing the crucial fat and protein needed to keep their internal fires burning. When the hide is first pulled back, a thick wave of heat rolls off the animal's body. You hold your freezing hands near the exposed muscle, soaking in the fleeting warmth. It is a stark reminder of the fragile fire that burns inside every living creature. For a moment, it feels like the hearth of the cave has followed you out into the wilderness. But the warmth fades quickly into the freezing air. You work until your muscles burn, and your hands are slick with dark, steaming blood. The pale sun begins its slow descent, casting long, bruised shadows through the pine trees. The temperature is already dropping. The group works silently, packing the heavy cuts of meat into rough hide bundles. The journey back to the cave will be brutal. You are tired, heavily burdened, and carrying a scent that every predator in the valley desires. But as you sling the heavy weight over your shoulder, you feel something else beneath the exhaustion. Hope. Tonight the fire will burn bright. Tonight, the hunger will be banished. Tonight, the cave will feel just a little bit closer to a home. You turn your face toward the direction of the shelter and begin the long walk back. The walk back is a battle of endurance. Every step is heavier than the last. The snow, which seemed manageable this morning, now feels like a physical enemy trying to drag you down. Your legs tremble under the immense weight of the hide bundles. The blood on your hands and clothes has frozen stiff, turning the edges of your furs into rigid dark crusts. Behind you, the sun dips below the jagged horizon. With the sun goes the light, and with the light goes the last illusion of safety. The temperature plummets so fast it feels as though the air itself is cracking. Then, you hear it. A long, low howl rises from the valley behind you. It is thin at first, but it climbs into a piercing, mournful note that echoes off the stone walls of the mountains. Seconds later, a second howl joins it, then a third. Wolves. They have found the kill site, they have tasted the blood left behind in the snow, and they know the scent trail leads directly to you. No one speaks. The leader simply tightens his grip on his spear and increases the pace. Fear is a luxury you cannot afford right now. Panic wastes energy. You force your burning muscles to move faster, matching the rhythm of the person in front of you. The forest grows darker, the shadows stretching and merging into a single, suffocating blanket of black. You keep your eyes fixed forward, and then you smell it. Before you can see anything, the faint, comforting scent of wood smoke touches the freezing air. It is the most beautiful smell in the world. You turn a corner around a massive outcropping of rock, and there it is. A faint, flickering orange glow bleeding out from the dark mouth of the earth. The cave. The return to the hearth. The final 100 yards are a blur of exhaustion and adrenaline. As you cross the threshold, the wind abruptly stops. The heavy, smoke-filled air wraps around you like a physical embrace. Inside, the group is waiting. They see the heavy bundles. They see the exhaustion in your eyes. And they understand. The quiet tension of the cave dissolves. Hands reach out to help lower the heavy loads from your shoulders. The frozen meat is carefully unpacked. The elder who tended the embers this morning now builds the fire up, adding thick logs until the flames roar, casting warm, dancing shadows against the rough stone walls. For the first time all day, you sit down. Your legs refuse to hold you any longer. You sink onto the layer of dry grass and animal hides, leaning back against the rock. The heat of the fire begins to thaw your numb fingers and soften your frozen clothing. The first cuts of meat are placed near the flames on flat, heated stones. The rich scent of roasting fat fills the small space, instantly banishing the metallic smell of blood and wet fur. The hunger that has been clawing at your stomach all day becomes a roaring demand. When the food is finally ready, it is distributed without argument. There is no hoarding. In this world, an individual cannot survive alone. The strength of the hunters is only as good as the health of the entire group. You take your share, burning your fingers slightly on the hot meat, and take a bite. It is intensely tough, wildly rich, and tastes of smoke and ash. It is the greatest thing you have ever eaten. The end of the day. As you eat, you look around the cave. The faces lit by the fire are smeared with dirt, soot, and pure exhaustion. The air is thick, the floor is still hard. The wind outside is howling again, violently throwing snow against the rocks, furious that it has been denied its prey. But inside the circle of light, there is life. You realize that the mountain still owns the cave. The winter still rules the world outside. The endless cycle of cold, hunger, and hunting will begin again in just a few days. But not tonight. Tonight, the darkness is held at bay. Tonight, the group is fed. Tonight, you will sleep deeply, protected by the oldest advantage humans ever created. The heavy satisfaction of a full stomach brings a new, overpowering sensation: gravity. Your eyelids feel as though they are weighted with stone. The exhaustion you managed to push away during the desperate walk back now settles deep into your bones. The adrenaline has completely evaporated, leaving behind a slow, warm lethargy. You wipe the remaining grease from your fingers onto your thick furs. It will help waterproof the hide. Nothing is wasted. Around the fire, the mood has shifted from frantic relief to a quiet, rhythmic calm. The meal is over, but the work of survival never truly stops. It simply changes pace. An elder sits cross-legged near the edge of the light, a piece of dark flint in their hand. With steady, practiced strokes, they begin scraping the fat from the inside of the fresh elk hide. The rhythmic shish-shish of the stone against the skin becomes a hypnotic background noise. Nearby, someone else places one of the heavy leg bones onto a flat rock, bringing another stone down with a sharp crack. They carefully split the bone lengthwise, exposing the rich, fatty marrow inside. It is a quiet industry. There are no words exchanged, yet everyone knows their role. The first stories, suddenly, a shadow shifts violently against the back wall of the cave. You look up. One of the hunters who stood beside you in the snow has stood up near the fire. He does not speak, but his body begins to move. He lowers his head, holding his arms up to mimic the heavy, jagged antlers of the elk. He stamps his foot against the dirt floor, imitating the beast scraping at the frozen earth. He is telling the story of the hunt. Another hunter joins him, crouching low, moving just as they did in the forest. They recreate the tension, the strike, the chaos, and the final fall. The rest of the group watches, captivated. A few low grunts of approval and soft, breathy laughs echo in the small space. This is more than just entertainment. It is an ancient classroom. The younger children, watching with wide eyes from the safety of their mother's furs, are learning. They are learning how the elk moves. They are learning how the hunters surround it. They are learning the cost of hesitation and the value of bravery. Before they ever hold a spear, they will have lived 100 hunts through the dancing shadows on the cave wall. The story finishes. The hunter sits back down. The shadow on the wall shrinks back into a flicker of orange light. The memory has been successfully preserved. They drift into the dark. Slowly, the group begins to settle. The elder stops scraping the hide and sets the flint aside. The cracked bones are cleared away. The fire is meticulously managed for the night, not too high, which would waste precious wood, and not too low, which would invite the biting cold back in. Large, slow-burning logs are pushed into the center of the embers. You crawl back to your sleeping spot. You arrange the dry grass and pull the heavy furs over your shoulders. The ground is just as hard as it was last night, and the air just past the fire's reach is just as freezing. But tonight, it feels different. The fear of the unknown that haunted you when you first arrived has been replaced by a quiet understanding. You know what it takes to survive here. You know the weight of the snow, the silence of the forest, and the sheer effort required to earn another day. You look at the people around you. They are huddled close together, their breathing sinking into a slow, collective rhythm. They are rough, scarred, and perpetually tired. But they are unbreakable. Outside, the wind shrieks, tearing at the mountain. The wolves may still be out there, pacing in the dark, waiting for weakness. Let them wait. Inside the cave, the fire breathes softly. You are warm. You are full. You are not alone. You close your eyes, letting the hypnotic crackle of the wood pull you under. The ancient world fades away, and you surrender, finally, to a deep and dreamless sleep. Time in the ancient world is not measured in hours, days, or weeks. It is measured in the shrinking piles of dried meat, the slow disappearance of the firewood, and the changing arc of the pale sun across the sky. You fall into the rhythm of survival. The cycle of hunting, foraging, repairing tools, and tending the fire becomes a blur of continuous motion. You survive the deep freeze. You endure the storms that trap you inside for days, where the air grows thick with smoke and the silence stretches until it rings in your ears. And then, one morning, something wakes you. It is not the violent shriek of the wind. It is a new sound. Drip, drip, drip. You open your eyes. The fire is low, but the air in the cave does not bite at your skin the way it did weeks ago. The heavy, suffocating frost that coated the ceiling near the entrance has begun to weep. Droplets of water are falling from the jagged stone, splashing softly into the dirt. The mountain is thawing. The smell of the earth. You push yourself up, leaving the heavy elk hide behind. Your body is leaner now, stripped of any excess by the relentless demands of winter. But it is stronger. The muscles in your legs and shoulders are dense with the labor of survival. You walk toward the entrance. When you step past the threshold, you are not met with the blinding, unbroken white of the frozen ocean. The landscape is changing. The snow is receding, pulling back to reveal wide, dark patches of wet earth. The skeletal trees are still bare, but their bark is dark with moisture. Down in the valley, the distant white line of the frozen river has broken. You can hear the dull, powerful roar of water rushing beneath cracking sheets of ice. But the most profound change is the smell. For months, the world smelled only of ice, wood smoke, and cold stone. Now, the air is thick with the raw, heavy scent of wet mud, decaying leaves, and the faint, unmistakable promise of green life. Winter is breaking. Around you, the group emerges from the cave. The heavy tension that has gripped their shoulders for months seems to visibly loosen. An elder lifts their face toward the pale sunlight, closing their eyes as the faint warmth touches their weathered skin. A few of the younger members point toward the distant river, their voices rising in a quiet, excited chatter. Spring brings life back to the valley. Fish will soon run in the swelling rivers. Roots and shoots will break through the softened earth. Herds will return, migrating back to the grazing lands, bringing easier hunts and fresh hides. But the changing season also brings a profound realization. The nomad's truth. You look back at the dark mouth of the cave. For months, this hollowed-out stone has been your entire world. It protected you from the blizzards. It held the fire that kept your blood flowing. It was the fortress that kept the wolves at bay. But humans of this era do not build permanent kingdoms. They are tied to the rhythm of the earth. If the herds move, the group must move. If the snow melts and the valley floods, the group must find higher ground. The cave was never meant to be a forever home. It was only a refuge for the hardest season. Inside, the packing has already begun. The thick winter hides are being tightly rolled and bound with sinew. The remaining dried meat is packed into leather pouches. The heavy grinding stones, too cumbersome to carry, are pushed into a deep, dry crevice at the back of the cave. They are being left behind, a hidden cache waiting for next winter. Assuming the group survives the journey and returns to this exact spot, there is no sentimentality in the packing. There is only efficiency. You walk back inside to gather your few possessions. You pick up your spear, its wooden shaft polished smooth by the oils of your hands. You roll your sleeping furs. Before you leave, you stand before the fire pit. The elder is there, carefully burying the last glowing embers beneath a thick mound of gray ash. It is a sign of respect and a practical measure. The ash will smother the smoke, leaving no signal for passing predators that humans were recently here. The fire, the glowing heart of your winter survival, goes dark. Suddenly, the cave feels empty. It is just cold stone and damp dirt once again. The magic that made it a shelter has vanished. Packed up in the bundles slung across the shoulders of the group. The endless horizon. You step out into the daylight one last time, joining the line as it forms outside the entrance. The leader points their spear down the mountain, toward the swollen river, and the vast, unknown plains beyond. There are no maps. There are no guarantees. There is only the collective memory of the elders, the strength of the group, and the endless horizon waiting to be crossed. You do not look back at the cave. You set your feet on the soft, wet earth. The air is cool, the world is vast, and the journey begins all over again. The descent from the mountain is a treacherous negotiation with the waking earth. During the deep winter, the ground was a solid sheet of iron. Now it is a living, breathing thing. The melting snow has turned the steep slopes into slick, unpredictable rivers of mud. Every step requires balance. You quickly learn to dig your heels in, using the shaft of your wooden spear as a walking staff to keep the heavy bundles on your back from pulling you down. The air grows warmer the lower you go, stripping away the biting edge of the wind. You hear the valley long before you see it. It begins as a low, vibrating hum beneath your feet, gradually building into a deafening, continuous roar. The swollen artery of the valley. You break through the final line of ancient pines, and the valley floor opens up before you. The river, which had been a quiet, frozen ribbon in the distance just days ago, is now a raging monster. It is swollen with the meltwater of 100 mountain peaks. The water is churning, thick with dark silt, violently dragging massive uprooted tree trunks downstream as if they were twigs. The ice is gone, but the water is a weapon. The group halts at the edge of the rocky bank. The mist from the crashing rapids sprays against your face, cold and shocking. In the modern world, a river is something to bridge or dam. Here, it is an absolute boundary. To step into that churning brown water would mean instant death. The current would drag you under and smash you against the rocks in seconds. But the leader does not look worried. He looks patient. The elders understand the moods of the earth. They know that this violent surge is temporary. The melt will slow, the waters will recede, and soon the river will transform from a barrier into a lifeline. Until then, they will wait. A sharp gesture is made, and the heavy bundles are dropped onto the soft, mossy bank. A temporary camp is formed, not enclosed by stone but open to the vast, gray-blue sky. The taste of green, while the hunters rest and watch the water, the rest of the group scatters along the banks. The desperate singular focus on hunting heavy game begins to shift. Spring brings a different kind of bounty. You follow a few of the others into the damp underbrush bordering the river. The earth here smells rich and deeply alive. They are not looking for tracks. They are looking for tiny, subtle breaks in the soil. You kneel in the mud, mimicking their actions. With a fire-hardened digging stick, you pry at the dark earth. Beneath the decaying leaves of autumn, you find them. Pale, fibrous roots swollen with stored starches, bright, curled shoots of young ferns, pushing fiercely through the dirt. Wild, pungent bulbs that smell intensely of garlic and raw onion. You wipe the dirt from a thick green shoot and place it in your mouth. The flavor is a shock to your system. It is violently bitter, crisp, and bursting with moisture. After months of surviving on nothing but smoked elk, tough marrow, and dried fat, the taste of fresh living plant matter is almost overwhelming. It feels like waking up. Your body craves it immediately. You dig faster, filling a woven grass pouch with the sharp green treasures of the new season. The cycle continues. As the afternoon stretches on, the pale sun finally breaks through the thick canopy of gray clouds. It hits the valley floor, casting a golden, warming light over the rushing water and the damp earth. You stand up, your hands coated in rich black mud, and let the sunlight hit your face. It is not the weak, distant light of winter. It has weight. It has warmth. You look down the riverbank at the people you have survived with. Some are chewing on fresh roots. Others are repairing the bindings on their tools. A few are simply sitting on the rocks, watching the violent water, resting their bodies after the brutal test of the dark months. They did not conquer the winter. No one conquers nature. They simply endured it, moving with the rhythms of the earth, leaning on each other when the cold became too heavy to bear alone. The river will eventually calm. The great herds of bison and deer will return to the plains. The days will grow long and hot, and the memory of the freezing cave will fade into the background of a busy, thriving summer. But the lessons of the dark will remain, carried in the muscle and bone of every person standing on this bank. You grip your spear, feeling the steady rhythm of your own heart. The ancient world is vast, dangerous, and incredibly beautiful. Time by the riverbank is spent quietly healing. The brutal toll of the winter begins to lift from the group's shoulders. You sleep out in the open, beneath a vast canopy of stars that seem brighter and less hostile without the frame of the cave entrance. The night air still carries a chill that bites at your exposed skin, but it no longer threatens to steal your life. By the morning of the fourth day, the deafening roar of the river has softened into a steady, rhythmic rush. You stand at the edge of the water. The muddy, violently churning brown has settled, replaced by a deep, swift-moving green. The massive, dangerous logs that were being hurled downstream have vanished, leaving behind a shoreline of smooth stones and damp sand. The river has become a road once again. But the group is not crossing, not yet. The elders are standing waist-deep in the freezing shallows, their eyes fixed intently on the rushing currents. The silver harvest, a sharp, excited shout breaks the morning quiet. It is a rare sound. Throughout the winter, silence was a survival tactic, a way to stay hidden from predators and conserve energy. Now the shout is a release. You look toward the elder in the water. He thrusts a long, fire-hardened spear down into the current. When he pulls it up, the sunlight catches on something thrashing violently at the end of the point. A massive, silver-scaled fish. The spring run has begun. Beneath the surface, the river is alive. Thousands of fish, driven by their own ancient instincts, are pushing their way upstream against the meltwater. After the scarce, desperate months of tracking single, dangerous beasts through the snow, the sheer volume of life moving through the water is staggering. The camp explodes into action. The grim, heavily armed hunters of the winter transform into rapid, agile fishers. There is no need for stealth here. The river covers all sound, and the fish are blind to anything above the churning surface. You drop your heavy furs on the bank, shivering as the cool spring air hits your skin, and wade into the water. The cold is absolute. The meltwater hits your legs like a wall of ice, sending a sharp ache deep into your bones. But you ignore it. You step carefully on the slick, algae-covered rocks, gripping your spear tightly. You look down into the swirling green depths. The water is thick with movement. Dark shapes dart against the current in endless rhythmic waves. The speed is blinding. The fish do not swim lazily. They fight the river with explosive bursts of power. The timing must be perfect. You cannot aim where the fish is. You must strike where it will be a fraction of a second later. You raise your spear. A shadow darts toward your legs. You thrust downward with all your weight. The spear strikes nothing but smooth river stone. The vibration jars your arms, and you nearly lose your footing in the swift current. Beside you, one of the younger hunters laughs. A bright ringing sound that cuts through the rush of the water. He plunges his hands directly into the foam and heaves a heavy, twisting silver body onto the rocky bank. It flops wildly against the stones, a pure bundle of fat, muscle, and fresh energy. The frenzy of abundance. You adjust your grip. You breathe in the sharp scent of the river and focus. Another shadow approaches. You wait a fraction of a second longer, letting your instincts override your modern desire to calculate. You strike. The wood bites deep. The spear shudders violently in your hands as the fish fights the point. You lift it entirely out of the water, the heavy creature spraying cold droplets across your face. A surge of pure, unfiltered triumph hits your chest. You wade back to the bank and toss the fish onto the growing pile of silver scales. For hours, the harvest continues. It is a chaotic, joyful frenzy. The sheer abundance of the river feels like a direct apology from the earth for the cruelty of the winter. By the time the sun reaches its peak, the bank is lined with dozens of heavy fish, and your legs are completely numb from the cold water. The group finally steps out of the river, their bodies slick with water and shivering, but their faces are visibly lighter. A new kind of fire. That evening, the fire built on the riverbank is entirely different from the ones in the cave. It is not a small, desperate ember hoarded for warmth. It is a large, crackling blaze built from the dry driftwood left behind by the receding waters. It does not need to hold back the darkness. It only needs to cook the feast. The fish are wrapped in broad, damp leaves and placed directly onto the hot coals. When they are pulled from the fire, the flesh flakes apart effortlessly. It is rich, incredibly fatty and sweet, a total contrast to the tough, gamey elk meat that sustained you through the dark months. You eat until you are completely full, surrounded by the sound of overlapping voices and quiet laughter. As the sun sets, painting the sky above the valley in brilliant strokes of purple and bruised orange, you sit back against a smooth boulder. You watch the river continue its endless flow. The fear of tomorrow is gone. The ancient world is still dangerous, and it will eventually demand your strength again. But tonight, the earth is generous. Morning arrives, wrapped in silver mist. The warmth of the feast lingers in your body, but the river has changed again. Yesterday it was generous. Today, it is purposeful. The water rushes steadily past the camp, no longer swollen with the violent rage of melting ice. The surface gleams pale beneath the rising sun, cold and unreadable. The elders are awake before anyone else. You notice them gathered near the bank, speaking quietly, their weathered hands pointing toward the narrowest stretch of water downstream. No one says it aloud, but everyone understands. It is time to move. Winter no longer owns this valley, and staying too long in one place carries its own danger. The fish will thin. The predators will follow the scent of blood and scraps. The land ahead is waking. The group begins preparing in practiced silence. There are no bags, no ropes, no carts. Everything you own can be carried in your hands or tied against your back. Stone tools wrapped in fur, sharpened spears darkened by fire, bundles of dried fish carefully packed into skin pouches. Children are lifted onto strong shoulders. The old walk slower, but no one is left behind. You kneel near the dying fire and press your palm into the cool ash. This place had been safety. Temporary, fragile, but safety all the same. Ahead, the river bends sharply between walls of stone. The crossing point is narrow, though the current still moves fast enough to steal your footing if you are careless. The first elder steps forward. He enters the water without hesitation. The cold reaches his waist instantly, but he plants his spear into the riverbed like a third leg and moves carefully against the force. Another follows, then another. No one rushes. The river punishes haste. You watch as the strongest hunters move into position downstream, forming a living barrier. If someone slips, they will catch them. At least, that is the hope. You tighten your grip on your spear. The air feels colder standing beside the water. Your legs remember yesterday's ache. Your bones remember the freezing current. Still, there is no choice. Behind you lies survival. Ahead lies food, movement, and the uncertain promise of spring. You step forward. The first touch of meltwater steals your breath. It feels like stepping directly into winter itself. The current presses hard against your thighs, stronger than it looked from shore. The river is alive, not angry, not kind, simply powerful. You push the spear into the rocky bed and take another careful step. A loose stone shifts beneath your foot. Your balance disappears instantly. Cold water crashes against your chest. For one terrifying second, the river takes hold of you. The current twists your body sideways. Your feet leave the ground. The sound of rushing water swallows everything. Then, a hand catches the thick fur tied across your shoulder. A hunter downstream braces himself against the current and pulls hard. You crash against him, coughing freezing water. No laughter follows. No embarrassment, only quick, steady hands helping you stand again. Everyone here has nearly been taken by something. The river, the cold, the hunger, the dark. Survival leaves little room for pride. You nod once. The hunter nods back, and together, step by careful step, the crossing continues. On the far side, the land feels different. Greener, softer. Small shoots of new plants push stubbornly through damp earth. Birdsong drifts through the trees. The smell of wet soil replaces the harsh scent of frozen stone. Spring waits ahead. But so does something else. Fresh tracks, large ones, press deep into the mud near the tree line. Not deer, not elk, something heavier, something watching. One of the elders crouches beside them in silence, then slowly rises. His face hardens. The feast by the river may be over, but the hunt, or perhaps the danger, has already begun. The group does not move immediately. The excitement of reaching the far bank fades into silence as everyone gathers around the tracks. The mud is still soft from the retreating floodwaters. Fresh, too fresh. You crouch beside one of the prints. It is massive, far larger than your own hand. 4 deep impressions press into the earth, ending in thick claw marks that curve sharply into the mud. The edges have not softened. No rain has touched them. No wind has disturbed them. Whatever made these tracks passed recently. Very recently. One of the hunters kneels beside the elder and touches the print carefully. Then he raises his head. His expression changes. Not fear. Recognition. He gestures toward the trees. The message spreads quickly through the group without words. Move carefully. Stay close. No one breaks into panic. Panic wastes energy. Panic kills. The camp begins moving again, slower now. Children are pulled closer to their parents. Spears are no longer carried casually at the side. They remain ready, pointed forward, eyes constantly shifting. The forest ahead feels alive, in a different way than the river. The open valley had space, light, movement. This place feels crowded. Ancient pines rise high above you, their dark branches swallowing much of the morning sun. Wet moss covers fallen trunks like thick green fur. Meltwater drips steadily from branches overhead, tapping softly against leaves and stone. Every sound matters here. A snapped twig, the sudden silence of birds, the rustle of unseen movement. Your feet sink into damp earth as the group follows a narrow game trail through the trees. The smell changes, pine sap, wet bark, old leaves, and beneath it, something stronger. A musky scent, heavy, animal. You notice it before anyone says anything. Several hunters stop walking. The elder raises his hand. Everyone freezes. Silence falls instantly. Even the children stop moving. At first you hear nothing, only your own breathing. Then, a low sound drifts through the trees. Not loud, not aggressive. A deep, rhythmic crunch. Bone, Something is eating. Very close. The hunters shift carefully. Spears tighten in their hands. You move behind a thick tree trunk and peer through the shadows. Ahead, between the pines, the forest opens into a small clearing. Something enormous stands there. At first, your mind struggles to understand its shape. It is bigger than any animal you have seen up close. Its shoulders rise like a moving wall of dark fur. Muscles roll beneath thick brown hide. A long snout lowers toward the torn body of an elk sprawled across the forest floor. The animal lifts its head. Blood darkens its muzzle. Its ears twitch. Then it stands fully upright. The world suddenly feels much smaller. The creature rises higher. Higher. Impossible. A massive brown bear. Far larger than the ones you know from modern forests. Its chest is broad as stone. Its claws hang long and curved like sharpened bone knives. Steam rises from its nostrils into the cold spring air. No one breathes. This is not prey. This is power. An animal strong enough to scatter wolves. Strong enough to kill with a single strike. The bear turns its head slowly. Its nose lifts into the air. Smelling. Searching. You feel every muscle in your body lock. The wind shifts. Toward it. A mistake. A terrible mistake. The bear freezes. Its dark eyes settle directly toward the trees. Toward your hiding place. For one endless second, nothing moves. Then the elder beside you makes a sound. Soft. Deliberate. A sharp clicking noise from the back of his throat. Not panic. A signal. The entire group begins stepping backward. Slowly. Carefully. No running. Running awakens instinct. Running turns you into prey. The bear lowers onto all fours again. Watching. Its enormous head sways slightly. Testing the air. You take one careful step backward. Then another. Every instinct screams to flee. But fear has rules here. Break them. And the forest decides whether you deserve another sunrise. No one turns their back. Not even for a moment. The forest feels impossibly still now, as if every living thing has paused to watch what happens next. You take another careful step backward. The wet earth shifts beneath your heel. Your breath stays trapped somewhere high in your chest. The bear remains near the carcass. Watching, its head tilts slightly, nostrils widening as it pulls your scent through the cold air. The distance between you feels both endless and terrifyingly small. One wrong movement, one burst of panic, and the fragile balance breaks. The elder clicks his tongue again, soft, measured. The signal spreads through the group. Move, slowly. Stay together. The hunters at the edges adjust their positions, forming a loose wall between the bear and the children. No one speaks. Words are unnecessary. Everyone understands. You are not the strongest thing in this forest. And survival sometimes means surrendering territory. The bear drops its head back toward the elk. For a brief moment, hope stirs. Maybe it has decided you are not worth the effort. Maybe hunger matters more than curiosity. Then, a deep sound rolls through the clearing, low, heavy, a warning rumble that vibrates through the ground itself. The bear is not relaxed. It is tolerating you, barely. You retreat farther. Step, pause. Watch, step, pause. Watch. The rhythm becomes everything. No sudden movements, no fear visible. Animals notice weakness. Predators test uncertainty. Then disaster nearly arrives. Behind you, a sharp crack. A child has stepped on a fallen branch. The sound snaps through the trees like lightning. The bear lifts its head instantly. Its body stiffens, muscles tighten beneath thick fur. Then it rises. Again. Towering impossibly high. A deep roar tears through the forest, not the dramatic sound of movies. This is deeper, violent, primal, the kind of sound your body understands before your mind does. The child begins to cry. The mother grabs him instantly, pressing him tightly against her chest. The hunters raise their spears, not to attack, to appear larger, to become difficult, dangerous. The elder takes one slow step forward, alone. He lifts both arms wide. His voice erupts into the forest. A strange, sharp burst of sound, not shouting in fear. Shouting with force. Authority. Others join him. The hunters slam spear shafts against tree trunks. Wood cracks against bark. Voices rise together. Loud, aggressive, unified. The forest explodes with sound. For a terrifying second, the bear leans forward. Testing. Judging. You see the raw strength inside its shoulders. The effortless violence stored in every movement. If it charges, no spear wall will truly stop it. Someone will die. Perhaps many. The bear exhales sharply. Its head swings once across the group. Then something changes. The noise, the numbers, the strange wall of moving humans. Too much effort. Too much risk. Slowly, the giant drops back onto all fours. It gives one final huff through wet nostrils and turns toward the elk carcass. Not surrender. A decision. You are no longer worth immediate trouble. The elder does not celebrate. No one relaxes. Not yet. The retreat continues, faster now, but still controlled. The clearing disappears behind thick pines. Then more trees, then distance. Only when the smell of blood finally fades does the group stop. Silence settles again. But it feels different now. Tighter, sharper. The illusion of spring safety is gone. Winter may have ended, but danger has simply changed shape. The elder kneels near a fallen log. With a burnt stick from yesterday's fire, he draws into damp soil. A mountain, a river, and a mark beside it. The bear's place. A place to avoid. Then he draws another symbol farther north. Open ground. Herd animals. Food. The message is clear. The journey continues. And tomorrow, you hunt. Morning comes colder than expected, not winter cold, but sharp, restless. The kind of chill that settles low across the valley floor before the sun remembers its strength. You wake before dawn to the sound of quiet movement. No laughter from the riverbank now. No careless voices. The encounter with the bear lingers inside everyone. Even the children are quieter. The group moves quickly. What little remained of last night's fish is eaten without ceremony. Cold flesh, oily and rich, enough to keep your body moving. The elder studies the sky. Thin clouds drift east. Good weather, for now. You leave the shelter of the forest before sunrise. The land slowly opens around you. Tall pines, thin into scattered trees. The earth becomes softer beneath your feet, wet with meltwater and new growth. Small flowers push through dark soil in fragile bursts of color. Birds circle overhead, their calls echoing across widening space. Ahead, the valley stretches broad and endless. And it is moving. At first, your eyes fail to understand what they are seeing. Dark shapes. Hundreds of them. Scattered across the distant grasslands like drifting shadows. You stop walking. Everyone does. The hunters stare. The elders say nothing. There is no need. Food. More food than you have seen since arriving in this ancient world. A migrating herd. Massive bodies move slowly through morning mist. Thick necks. Heavy shoulders. Curving horns, catching pale sunlight. Not deer. Too large. Not elk. Too broad. Wild cattle. Ancient aurochs. The animals graze cautiously, their breath steaming in the cool dawn air. Even from this distance, they feel dangerous. Each one is muscle-wrapped in bad temper. A single kick could shatter bone. A charge could crush ribs flat. But the herd means something larger than danger. Fat, meat, hide, bones for tools. Weeks of survival, maybe longer. The hunters crouch immediately. Excitement moves through the group like electricity. Controlled, focused. This is not river fishing. The river gave freely. The hunt demands payment. You move lower beside the others. The elder kneels and presses fingers into damp soil. Wind direction, critical. The breeze moves toward your face. Good. Your scent drifts away from the herd. A younger hunter points toward a narrow stretch of land ahead, where steep, rocky slopes pinch the valley into a bottleneck. A trap, not perfect, but possible. The plan forms quickly. No spoken strategy. No long discussion. This world teaches efficiency. Half the hunters will move wide around the valley. Push slowly. Create pressure, noise when needed. The rest will wait near the bottleneck with spears ready. Separate one animal, not the strongest, not the largest, the weak, the injured, the young. Survival respects patience more than pride. You move with the driving group. Every step matters. Grass brushes softly against your legs as you crouch low through uneven ground. Mud clings to your feet. The smell of wet earth mixes with animal musk, carried faintly by the wind. Closer now. The herd feels enormous. The sound surprises you most. Breathing. Heavy. Low grunts. Hooves shifting against damp soil. You can see scars across thick hides. Steam rising from nostrils. Flies gathering near old wounds. A calf nudges against its mother. Huge horns swing lazily through the mist. You grip your spear tighter. Too close. Your pulse pounds hard enough to hear. Then, a bird explodes upward from the grass beside one of the hunters. Wings beating violently. Too sudden. Too loud. Several heads in the herd jerk upward instantly. Stillness. Absolute stillness. One enormous bull lifts its head fully. Dark eyes scanning. Its nostrils flare. The animal snorts once. Hard. A warning. Another aurochs shifts nervously. Then another. The moment balances on a knife edge. One mistake, and the entire valley could erupt into thunder. Then, the bull lowers its massive head. It tears a clump of grass from the earth, jaws grinding with slow, heavy rhythm. The tension breaks like a snapped thread. The surrounding aurochs relax, their attention dropping back to the valley floor. The herd accepts the silence again. The elder glances towards you, his eyes tight but steady. He raises 2 fingers, then points toward the left flank of the herd. The movement begins. You creep forward, staying low enough that the tall grass brushes your chin. Ahead, near the edge of the group, an older cow shifts heavily. She moves with a slight limp, her rear leg dragging through the wet soil. Behind her stands a half-grown yearling, its coat shaggy and pale. The targets. The driving group splits silently, fanning out into a wide crescent behind the limping cow. The wind remains kind, blowing steadily into your faces, carrying your scent away from the animals. Step by step, you close the distance. 50 paces, 40, 30. The massive shapes tower over you now, even while grazing. Up close, the sheer bulk of the aurochs is overwhelming. They are mountains of muscle and bone, their curved horns long enough to impale a man completely. The elder reaches the designated point. He looks back at the drivers. He raises his spear high. The signal. With a sudden explosive burst, the hunters stand upright. They do not shout in fear. They shout to terrify. A chorus of harsh, rhythmic yells erupts into the quiet valley. Spear shafts slam against leather shields. Rocks are thrown into the dirt. The edge of the herd panics instantly. The limping cow bolts forward with a startled grunt. Her yearling stays glued to her side, eyes wide with terror. The main herd shifts away from the noise, surging toward the open center of the valley like a dark wave. But the limping cow and her young are cut off. The drivers push harder, running parallel to the 2 fleeing animals, shouting and waving their arms to keep them on course. Directly toward the rocky bottleneck, where the rest of the hunters wait in the shadows, an older cow lowers her head and resumes grazing. Another follows. Slowly, tension loosens across the herd. The great bull remains suspicious, but the fragile panic begins to fade. Beside you, one hunter exhales so quietly you barely hear it. The moment passes. Barely. Far across the valley, hidden among scattered stones and brush, the second hunting group has reached position. You spot movement, a flicker of fur, a raised arm. The signal. The drive begins. At first, nothing changes. Then, a sharp cry cuts through the valley. Another joins it. Stones clatter, branches shake. Human voices rise suddenly from behind the herd. The aurochs explode into motion. The earth shakes beneath your feet. Massive bodies surge forward in violent confusion. muscles rippling beneath dark hides. Hooves pound against wet ground, tearing grass and throwing mud high into the air. The sound is overwhelming. Thunder. Living thunder. The herd funnels exactly where the hunters hoped. Toward the narrow pass. Toward you. Too fast. Much faster than expected. Your chest tightens. This is no careful hunt. This is chaos controlled by luck. The great bull charges first, enormous horns swinging like weapons of polished bone. Hunters near the bottleneck scatter instantly. No one is foolish enough to face that creature head-on. The valley erupts into shouting. A younger animal slips in mud. Another slams sideways into it. Bodies crash together. For one brief second, opportunity. A smaller female breaks from the herd. Young, but full-grown enough to feed everyone. Separated. Panicked. Exactly what the hunters needed. The elder shouts sharply. The group moves. You run. Adrenaline burns through your legs. The aurochs crashes through shallow water, trying desperately to rejoin the others. Mud sprays across your body as you sprint over uneven ground. A spear flies, misses. Another strikes the animal's shoulder. It bellows violently, not down, still running. Too strong. You force yourself faster. Closer. Dangerously close. The animal suddenly veers left. Straight toward you. Time disappears. You see everything at once. Mud flying from sharp hooves. Wild fear in dark eyes. Muscle rolling beneath wet hide. Its horns lower. Instinct takes over. You dive sideways. The creature crashes past so close that wind slams against your face. A hunter behind you is not fast enough.